I'm Pia and you're watching NewsX World. Let's take a look at the top stories this hour. A day after claiming that the US has lost to India and India to China, Donald Trump has toned down his rhetoric, calling Prime Minister Modi a close friend. He has stated that the two countries share a special relationship. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has expressed his appreciation for President Trump's comments on the state of bilateral ties. He has shared the American leader's positive view of the forward-looking, comprehensive and global strategic partnership. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi will not attend the UN General Assembly session that is set to be held in New York from 23rd to 29th September. Now, according to the revised provisional list of speakers, External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar will now deliver India's statement on 27 September. A Canadian government report has acknowledged that Khalistani terrorist groups supporting violent means to establish an independent state within Punjab in India are suspected of raising funds in a number of countries, including Canada. The report highlights Babbar Khalsa International and the International Sikh Youth Federation as terrorist organizations receiving financial support originating from Canada. The ICE has detained 475 workers in a massive raid at a Hyundai facility in Georgia. A special agent of Homeland Security has revealed that the employees were working unlawfully. Meanwhile, the Trump administration has termed the detainees as aliens. Israel has struck high-rise buildings while ramping up its offensive to take over Gaza City. Defense Minister Katz has warned that the strike on the buildings is just the beginning of a string of major attacks. Donald Trump has revealed that US officials are currently negotiating with Hamas to reach a hostage deal. This comes as Netanyahu continues to escalate the Israeli offensive in Gaza. Tropical typhoon Peipa has left 24 people wounded and over 40 buildings damaged in Japan. There are also reports of agricultural greenhouses being blown away by the strong winds in Yaizu city. All right, viewers, those are the headlines and our top focus as tensions rise between the United States and Venezuela over a U.S. military buildup in the Caribbean. Many Venezuelans now appear largely unfazed by the geopolitical standoff unfolding just off their coast. This week, a U.S. military strike sank a Venezuelan boat allegedly carrying narcotics, killing 11 people. U.S. President Donald Trump has warned of further action and authorized the deployment of 10 F-35 fighter jets to Puerto Rico, citing threats from Venezuelan-linked drug cartels. Despite the dramatic escalation, scenes in coastal towns like La Guaira remain calm. Families continue to relax at the beach, children splash in the surf, and fishermen cast their lines, seemingly untouched by the military development just miles away. Listen in to their reactions.
Todos los venezolanos estamos disfrutando. Si hay problema social, hay con el presidente, más no con los venezolanos. Usted puede ver cómo la gente disfruta su día a día, de verdad. Se espera, según se habla de una guerra, pero usted puede ver todo.
Si hay o no hay buque, no sabemos, porque nosotros somos, como uno dice, del trabajador a pie, que andamos acá, no sabemos lo que está pasando allá. No sabemos qué puede pasar el día de mañana, de esta noche, no sabemos. Pero nosotros, como somos lo del trabajador a pie, no sabemos.
Meanwhile, Nicolas Maduro, Venezuelan president, has called for dialogue and warned against regime change plans. Most Venezuelans remain focused on daily struggles like food, work and survival. So far, rising U.S. military presence and political rhetoric have not disrupted life on the ground, but uncertainty lingers as both sides harden their position. With us on the broadcast is Keith Vaz. He's a former Minister of the United Kingdom, joining us live from London. Thank you for taking our time speaking to us on NewsX World. Crucial developments coming in from Venezuela, even as geopolitically the situation remains tense. The people on the ground are not quite phased. What do you expect is likely to take place next? We do know now that the Trump administration or the United States is bolstering its military presence as well?
Yes, good morning. This is a very worrying development where you have, in effect, direct action being taken by the United States against another country. Admittedly, this is not the Venezuelan forces, what President Trump and the American administration, and this is seen to be led very much by Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who's got an interest in South American affairs. What they say is that these particular cartels that operate in South America, in particular in Venezuela, are a threat to the security of the United States because these boats are carrying drugs. Now, as you've said in your broadcast, this is allegedly what's going on. We don't know for certain what is happening, but it is a very worrying escalation. The last thing Venezuelans want, and other countries associated with Venezuela and near Venezuela in South America, are these airstrikes being operated against what is a sovereign nation. So I think that the president of Venezuela is right to call for a dialogue. What we need to see is the OAS, the Organization of American States, or more significantly, the UN, trying to intervene. The problem is neither of these organizations are listened to by the current American administration, and therefore you probably need a third party to intervene and to try and ensure that there is some kind of collective dialogue. I'm not sure which country that would be, because all of them would feel under threat as a result of what the Americans are doing. So we should be very worried about it. I know you mentioned the fact that people are splashing on beaches and fishing as if nothing was happening. I think there is a real concern in Venezuela that this is going to escalate.
Indeed, I wanted to add a quick point to what you've stated. We've recently seen Donald Trump change the names. He signed an executive order to that effect, at least, changed the name of the Department of Defense to the Department of War, even though it does require congressional approval. What does this particular move signal to you? In your assessment, what does this change in nomenclature mean?
It's a very important point that you make. You're right, the name of the department has changed. I'm not sure why, because I thought that President Trump was interested in the Nobel Prize for Peace. So actually, he should have changed it to the Department of Peace, not the Department of War, because that seems to be his main objective. And you're not going to get the Nobel Prize for Peace if you change your Defense Department into the Department of War. Someone probably woke up this morning and decided that this was a good idea. But as with most of the stuff that we get from the White House these days, it is about leading the news cycle. So it's a good story. Congress, of course, won't say anything because it is under the control of the Republicans. And this will continue until November next year when you have congressional elections. But until then, you're not going to have much change out of Congress. Congress is really not going to do very much until something even more dramatic happens. You find with legislatures that when they think their seats are under threat, they then start to behave in a completely different way.
Indeed, sir, I request you to stay on with us. We're now tracking some key developments from the United Kingdom itself. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer has finalised a significant reshuffle of his cabinet following the resignation of his Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner on the 5th of September. David Lammy has now been appointed as the new Deputy Prime Minister and Justice Secretary. Meanwhile, Yvette Cooper will take over Lammy's position as Foreign Secretary, and Shabana Mahmood is set to become the new Home Secretary. These changes come as part of a broader reshuffle prompted by Rayner's resignation. Remember, Rayner stepped down after the Prime Minister's ethics advisor found that she had breached the ministerial code over unpaid property taxes on her flat in East Sussex. Now, in her resignation letter, she accepted full responsibility for the error. Meanwhile, UK Prime Minister Starmer has expressed regret over her departure. Now, according to reports, Londoners have reacted to the changes with cautious optimism. Many of them willing to give the new cabinet the benefit of doubt. Listen in.
I quite like Yvette Cooper. I don't really know much about David Lammy, so don't know anything about Shabana Mahmood. So we'll wait and see. I'm sure they'll do a fine job. I'm right behind them. As long as Nigel Farage is not in the cabinet, ever.
I think it's a great shame that someone who is as smart and funny and talented as Angela Rayner's gone. It's a great shame because I think that she had an appeal for people on a popular level. And I think that people are drawn to popularism and the people that get put in front of the camera quite often now, rather than people who've got sensible policies, which is why you've got hideous individuals like Nigel Farage becoming popular. I will have to leave the country if he becomes Prime Minister.
So, I mean, it depends on the Prime Minister's opinion. As far as he still has trust in his ministers, he can reshuffle the cabinet in terms of how in terms of the potentials of the ministers, and I think it's still.
Mr. Keith was still with us on the broadcast. We've just heard some of the Londoners reacting to this reshuffle that has taken place. Some have called it a shame that Ms. Rayner had to step down. They called her smart, funny, talented, but at the crux of this was a tax scandal. She was embroiled in a tax scandal as she had in fact admitted to underpaying stamp duty. So what is your take on what the Londoners are now saying?
Well, I don't think it's up to the Londoners. I think at the end of the day, these are opinions that are being sought as soon as something changes. Can I start by saying I know all the people involved. Some of them are personal friends of mine, and they're all very talented. The crucial thing is, are they in the right jobs? Yvette Cooper, I think, will do a good job as Foreign Secretary, though if I was the Prime Minister, I would have made her Chancellor of the Exchequer. Economics is her key achievement. She knows a lot about economics, but he's decided to make her Foreign Secretary, which is fair enough. She'll do, I think, a very good job. Shabana Mahmood, I've known since she was very young, and I'm saying that from someone who is about to reach 70. I don't mean that in a patronizing way. So I've seen her career develop and her interest in politics develop, and I think she'll make a very good Home Secretary. David Lammy, I was there when he got his seat. I was sitting on the National Executive Committee, and we always thought he'd become Prime Minister. So he's just a heartbeat away now as Deputy Prime Minister. So as people, they are all really good, decent people and will want to do a good job. Nobody becomes a cabinet minister wanting to be a failure. The problem is, are there the policies in their portfolio that's going to change things? And the reason why he's done this reshuffle is because Angela decided to stand down. And she, I think, was very open, very honest. She did the right thing. She initially did not have the time. I mean, I've been a minister. I know what it's like. You don't have the time to do this kind of stuff. And unless you have a spouse or a advisor or a member of staff who takes on all these responsibilities for you, you've got to do it all yourself. And obviously, she needed to do this at haste. So I am quite convinced that she will come back in the future. She's very young in political terms, and there's a long way to go. So she'll sort all our stuff out, and then she'll be back, I think, with a bang. What is more interesting is the contest for the deputy leadership of the Labour Party, which is now vacant. The last time this happened when Labour was in government many, many years ago, and the deputy leadership became vacant, not under Tony Blair, but before that under Harold Wilson. It was a big deal. And I think this is where the members are going to decide to possibly give the Prime Minister and the leader of the party a little reminder as to who's in charge. Even he is mortal. We're all mortal. In politics, if you last more than 2 years as a minister, you've done very well. We're only in the first year now. There's another year to go. There will be another reshuffle next year. So I think that for these individuals, I wish them all the best of luck. These are very tough jobs, but I'm convinced that all these people are up to these jobs. All of them, I know, will do the best they possibly can. But at the end of the day, you cannot stop the boats if you're the Home Secretary. If the French aren't prepared to do their bit, you cannot do anything about foreign policy and control what Donald Trump is doing if he's not prepared to listen. And in your capacity as the Minister for Housing, you can't build houses unless your economy is in shape. So for all these reasons, these changes, of course, had to be made. These personalities are all good people who will do a good job. Is the climate and conditions right for change? One last thing, it's interesting what we heard from the Londoners about Nigel Farage.
Yes.
Well, people are going to the extremes, whether it's Jeremy Corbyn on the left or Nigel Farage on the right, and Jeremy Corbyn's party, former party leader, has not even begun, and it's already got about 10 to 15% of the opinion polls. Once they get going, the whole landscape of British politics will change. It won't be like India, Congress and the BJP, or America, Republicans and Democrats. You will have a wide variety of different parties for people to choose from. We have never been in territory of that kind before. It's going to be very new territory. I just wish all these colleagues, Yvette Cooper, Shabana Mahmood, David Lammy, all the others, I wish them all well. It's a tough job being a minister in a government in any circumstance. At this moment, it's a very tough job. And do not be surprised if we are all back here in a few weeks' time and somebody else has resigned and there's another reshuffle. That is what happens when you're in government. Events happen and there's no controlling them.
Absolutely. With that, I'd like to thank you, Mr. Keith Vaz, for taking out time, speaking to us on NewsX World, providing your perspective on this very crucial development from the United Kingdom. Meanwhile, viewers, we're shifting focus to more news coming in. Now, in response to the ICE arrests at Hyundai's electric vehicle plant in Georgia, the South Korean Foreign Minister Cho Hyun has confirmed that over 300 South Koreans have been detained by U.S. authorities at the plant. The South Korean Foreign Minister has also stated that he will fly to Washington to discuss matters when needed. The South Korean Foreign Ministry has also reassured that they're taking active measures and conveying their concerns to the U.S. Embassy. Listen in.
이 사건에 대해 주 미국 대사관 총영사와 주 애틀랜타 총영사관의 영사를 현장에 급파하고 현지 공관을 중심으로 현장 대책반을 출범시킬 것을 지시하는 등 적극 대처 중입니다.
U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement authorities have arrested nearly 500 people. Out of these, 300 are South Korean nationals, as we've just heard the Foreign Minister of South Korea confirm. This was done at Hyundai's electric vehicle plant and adjacent battery construction site in Georgia in Atlanta. Now, Hyundai has stated that none of those detained are directly employed by the company. It is reviewing contractor compliance as well. Meanwhile, LG Energy Solutions has also paused construction at the site. This raid is, of course, taking place amid Donald Trump's bid for stricter immigration enforcement. Trump, of course, has hailed the ICE and has stated that these illegal workers are aliens. Listen in.
I just heard about that a little while before the news conference, and I would say that they were illegal aliens, and ICE was just doing its job. But I know nothing about the instance that happened a little while ago. Okay?
There has been some pushback on that, though, from South Korea already, and of course, they pledged to invest $150 billion in the U.S. and they were just here, last week. Are you concerned?
Well, and they have the right to sell cars and things in our country. It's not like a.
With us on the broadcast is Dr. Sanjay Kumar, journalist at the Korea Herald, joining us from Seoul. Thank you so much for taking our time speaking to us on NewsX World. Since the last time we discussed what's taken place in Georgia, we've got now a formal reaction by the South Korean Foreign Minister Cho Hyun, who's now confirmed that out of the 500 people who've been detained, 300 are South Korean nationals. As I pointed out earlier, over the course of this year, ever since Trump was sworn in for the second time, we've seen some rather shocking images come in from the United States as far as these detentions and the consequent repatriation of these so-called illegal workers, illegal immigrants are concerned. They've often been shackled, been bound, taken back on military planes by the US administration. So is this now and addressing this and ensuring that they're treated in a humane manner the primary concern of South Korea at the moment?
Yes, human rights violation is a great concern right now, and that is why not only the foreign minister of South Korea, but President Lee Jae-myung has also just few hours back iterated that the rights of Korean citizens overseas must not be infringed while taking this enforcement of law by the US authorities. So not only foreign ministry, but the entire government in South Korea has pulled their socks up, and they are working very closely with the authorities of US in Korea. For example, the US embassy in Seoul, as well as the authorities in the US, and all the diplomatic channels looks like has been activated. So it is not just a consular matter. This has been perceived by South Korea, but there is a lot of skepticism also in South Korea and among the South Koreans, and it is because of the ongoing negotiations which has raised concerns that many of the items and the related tariffs had not been finalized, and there is a lot of skepticism that that may affect the negotiation, and it can be seen as a negotiation tactics. Although although US has not confirmed about these aspects, and only has reiterated that it is a federal system of governance in US which is taking its course, and law enforcement agencies are only doing their work. But in long-term perspective, South Koreans are also viewing it as a disturbance and disruption to the people-to-people contact, as well as the execution of Korean investments in the US, because we should take a note that recently, when the summit held between President Lee Jae-myung and President Trump, $150 billion had been promised by Korean side. So that also needs to be finalized, like how this investment is going to be done in US. These kind of discussions are already mounting in South Korea, and also there are concerns on visa issues. For example, B1 visas had not been swiftly allocated to South Koreans, and there are concerns of E4 visa also. So there are discussions here that in case of Australia, US government has allocated a quota of almost 15,000 visa to people. But in case of South Korea, that sort of thing has not happened. So there is a need to achieve such kind of a quota as well in coming months. So these are the things which are being discussed in the Korean circles right now.
Indeed, and we're also getting to know that the South Korean foreign minister will be flying to Washington very, very soon. What can we expect him to raise apart from this issue?
Well, foreign minister has said that if it is really needed, or if it is needed, he is set to fly to US and talk to the authorities, because this is not the issue is being taken very seriously by the Korean side, because US-ROK alliance remain intact. It's an ironclad alliance, and this kind of people-to-people contact disruption may cause a long-term impact and consequences. Already the perception has been affected in South Korea just within one day, and today is Saturday, and you can see the urgency of the matter, that the foreign minister and the vice ministers have convened a very urgent meeting. They have convened even a joint task force also to look into this matter urgently. So what next is very important, and opposition here is also trying to raise this issue, because already the President Lee Jae-myung's pragmatic diplomacy is in check these days by the opposition party. So things are moving in a very fast but critical direction. So for Korean citizens to be protected, it is a matter of human rights concern right now to many here in Korea.
Indeed, sir. With that, I would like to thank you for taking our time, of course, sharing with our viewers what exactly is the perspective of the Korean administration and the Korean public at large, even as these detentions continue in the United States of America. Meanwhile, viewers, we're shifting focus towards more news coming in. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres has called for a universal reappraisal of World War II history. He has noted China's 14-year resistance against Japan. He's called it a decisive factor in the victory of the Allies. Guterres has claimed that the Second World War lasted from 1939 to 1945 and it is a unilateral vision. Listen in.
There is this idea that the World War started in 1939 and then in 1945. But the truth is that the beginning of the Second World War was triggered by Japan against China, the famous incident that is well known. So to say that World War was 39 to 45 is indeed a unilateral vision, and we need to have a universal.
Guterres has also elaborated on China's contribution in the Second World War that led to the victory of the Allies. Listen in.
It's true that the resistance of China against Japan was for many years decisive factor of resistance against Japan. And it had a fundamental contribution to weaken Japan, and that allowed for Japan to be defeated in the end of Second World War. So the Chinese contribution is a contribution that was extremely important for the victory of the Allies, that include China.
The UN Secretary General has also stressed on the need to recognize China's contribution in the Second World War as well as to read history in a universal perspective. Take a look.
As I said, one needs to look at the Second World War in its entirety, and effectively it started not very far from here. It started not very far from here. It ended also in the Pacific. I think, and this is true in many other aspects, we need to read history in a truly universal perspective, and not only in the perspective of the geographic area in which an historian belongs.
Joining us on the broadcast is Dr. Satoru Nagao. He's a fellow at the Hudson Institute in Tokyo. Thank you for taking out time speaking to us on NewsX World. We've just heard what UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has claimed. He's gone on to claim that the Second World War did not commence in 1939 but was actually triggered by Japan. And as far as World War II is concerned, we know for a fact that there's been a narrative war between the CCP and Taiwan for a very long period of time. Now, with the UN Secretary General's comments, do you think Xi Jinping has at least managed to ingrain the CCP's perspective, the CCP's idea of history with his military parade?
Yes, this is terrible. United Nations is just a puppet of Chinese government. So that this remark indicates that is a very important problem now, because along with China's view, United Nations try to redefine the definition of the World War II. That is strange thing. Indeed, when Japan attacked China, that China was not a communist China. And in the Hudson Institute, there is a colleague of the Miles Yu, who contributes the first Trump administration, published an article in the Washington Times, China's World War II victory parade, the supreme fiction. Why? because the Communist Party's guerrilla did not contribute so much. Despite this, the current Communist Party tried to hold 18th anniversary of the victory of the World War II. This means that this is just a fiction. He analysis in the one by one when he checked the data. So that's why if the United Nations Secretary General try to say along with the data only based on the Chinese government side, this is not neutral. This is not a real United Nations. This is just a proxy of the Chinese government. That is very problematic remark, I think. So this is just a fiction. China tried to reorganize the rule-based order along with their interests, and the United Nations Security General follows this policy set by China because they are main patron for the United Nations. That is terrible. Money move, rule itself, world order itself, this is not good. Of course, not good for any other countries. That is very big problem, I think.
And that's not all. We've seen US President Donald Trump also point out that some of the countries who are a part of the Allied forces, whether it is the United States, it's the UK, they were not invited to China's military parade. So in light of this, what do you make of the UN Secretary General's statements? Because the UN so far, it's physically located, its headquarters is physically located in the United States of America. We've also seen significant influence as far as the US is concerned with the United Nations. But since Trump has adopted a more protectionist stance, do you think China is now filling a vacuum as far as influence within the United Nations is concerned?
Go and return has happened between US and the UN. The United States does not fund the United Nations under the Trump administration because the United Nations stance towards Israel or others is not neutral United States think. So that's why the political stance affects the fund or not, and the fund or not affect the political stance. So go and return, and the detail rating, so balance cycle. That is true. But at the same time, as a UN Secretary General, what is the stance they should show? Just follow the money came from China is terrible. This looks like businessman. So that is not ideal. That is not the organization many countries involved. So that attitude of the, General Guterres is very big problem and scandalous, I think.
All right, sir. With that, I would like to thank you for taking out time, sharing your perspective on NewsX World. Meanwhile, viewers, shifting focus to more news coming in, we're now learning that members of the public have begun paying their respects to fashion icon Giorgio Armani, whose coffin is now on display in Milan. Hundreds of people have queued up to view his body, with the viewing scheduled to last 2 days ahead of a private funeral on the 8th of September. A hearse carrying the legendary designer's body arrived at the Armani Theatre, where he will lie instead over the weekend. Armani is widely regarded as the king of Italian fashion. He passed away on the 4th of September, marking the end of an era. 50 years after founding his eponymous brand, Armani transformed it into a global luxury empire spanning haute couture, perfumes, makeup and even furniture. The loss of Armani, who maintained tight control over the empire he built, has left Italy mourning the death of a national icon. Tributes have poured in from celebrities, shoppers and fashion leaders, honoring his legacy and immense influence on the fashion world. Let's in fact listen in to what some residents and visitors have had to say.
Dato di vederlo, mettere a posto una vetrina, non c'erano le luci che lui voleva, l'abbiamo proprio sentito in uno dei negozi, in via Manzoni eravamo, lui mettere a posto la maglietta dicendo voglio la luce in un certo modo, no?
No, ma io tante
Quindi
volte ho visto
piega le magliette,
proprio perché non
sì.
erano come le voleva lui, semplicemente
Sì.
non perché i capelli, non perché i commessi non siano capaci, non erano come voleva lui, la perfezione che voleva lui, è questo che mi piaceva, proprio la perfezione.
Che ha fatto nella sua vita, lo ha fatto proprio per il suo ideale di grandissima passione, quindi è un esempio di professionalità, imprenditorialità e di passione, quindi tutte le persone presenti qua devono testimoniare l'amore che hanno ricevuto.
Una persona indubbiamente sempre anticipato, insomma, sia nel bello che nel brutto, anche in situazioni, non so, ricordiamo che è stato il primo a fare la sfilata a porte chiuse nel 2020, una sfilata senza musica. È rimasto iconico il rumore solo dei tacchi delle modelle nel 2022 in occasione della guerra in Ucraina, e questo, insomma, quando si parla di classe non la dobbiamo riferire solo ai suoi abiti, proprio a lui.
Well, viewers, that's all the time we have for this particular bulletin. More news and updates on the other side as we slip into a quick short break.